Here is a woman. We are looking at her and she's looking at us. It's a strange feeling making eye contact with a painting. I don't know about you, but I find myself in a kind of staring competition. I blink first. I think looking is like asking questions. The first thing I want to know here is, who is this person looking back at me? Her face is the kind of face I could pass in the street, but she's wearing a crown, and at the back of her head is a halo, gold and as solid as a plate. She's luminous, as if spotlit on a stage, wearing a costume and holding the props to play a part. The title of the painting tells us who she's playing. This is Self-Portrait as St. Catherine of Alexandria. So the woman is two people at once. She's St. Catherine, born around 287 AD, and she's Artemisia Gentileschi, painting this image 1300 years later. The magic trick of visual art is that a single image can hold multiple realities, can be multiple things at once. Artemisia is herself, and she is someone else. She asks us to see double. As Catherine, the woman holds a palm frond in her right hand. This tells us she's a martyr, that she died for her Christian faith. The hand is close to her heart in a gesture that says, "This is me." And this brings Artemisia into focus. She is standing at her canvas, the palm frond doubling as a paintbrush, and she glances over her shoulder to study her reflection in the mirror. We see what she sees. The dimple in the corner of her mouth where shadow pools. The dip in her forehead that perhaps becomes a furrow when she frowns. The soft curls around her face. The redness of her ear. And with the direction of her gaze, Artemisia places us in the position of her reflection. We are both looking and being looked at. We become involved in the painting. But why did Artemisia paint herself as this saint in the first place? Catherine was a popular image in the 1600s. Maybe Artemisia needed to make something that would sell, and it was cheaper to paint herself rather than paying a model to pose. In other words, maybe she needed the cash. But there's too much emotion, too much that feels personal in this painting for that to be the only answer. Look at the woman's left hand. I think this reveals a point of connection between the two lives. The hand steadies an instrument of torture, a wheel designed to break people's bodies. It tells part of Catherine's story. At 18, she was sentenced to death on this wheel for refusing to give up her faith. But when she touched it, the wheel miraculously split in two. It's a moment that's been remembered, depicted by artists through the centuries. What makes Artemisia's depiction unique, complex, meaningful is how, in lending her body and her face to the saint, she finds a relationship between the events of Catherine's life and her own. At 17, Artemisia was raped. In the trial that followed, a common torture practice was used to test if she was telling the truth. Ropes were wrapped around her fingers. As they were pulled tighter and tighter, she repeated, "It is true, it is true, it is true," over and over again. Both women had violence inflicted on them by systems of power. I think you can see Artemisia reckoning with these histories as she places her hand on the wheel. She makes a memory of pain visceral in the details that she paints. The hand is fleshy, graceful, tender. The spikes gleam in the light, cruel and made to puncture. I notice that the curve of the fingers and the curve of the spikes is almost the same. The echo in the shape makes the contrast between the brutality of one and the vulnerability of the other even more threatening. But the woman here isn't a victim. In fact, power runs in the opposite direction. Artemisia has chosen to paint herself as a woman who broke the thing that was meant to break her. As the little finger brushes the sharp metal edge, the whole painting is charged with the touch that split the wheel in two. Artemisia once said, "As long as I live, I will have control over my being." She paints herself as Catherine, determined, defiant, strong. Her power comes not from the violence of the wheel, but through her connection with this person who lived over 1,000 years before she was born, through her connection with us and with anyone who finds themselves in front of this painting. The more I look at her image, the more I feel it wants to communicate something with me. It's bigger than words, but even though I can't name it exactly, when I look at Artemisia's gaze, I think it says, "I know you know what I mean."